if Carter wins his 5th championship and Gable Steveson wins this year's championship, are they going to do the right thing and give OW or Hodge to Carter? Or as long as Gable wins his championship, he takes all the prizes, right?
No, they'll give it to Carter. They're going to do the right thing. I think they will.
Because of 5.
I think because of 5, and it's just historic. It's the right thing to do. And a big part of the vote is now past Hodge winners, which the last 12 years, it's been a lot of Penn State. So, and then Coach Chael's got 4 of them. So we have a significant percentage of the vote at this point.
Wait a minute. I actually didn't know this. So to be able to vote on the Hodge, it's not just the media anymore. It's now prior Hodge winners.
Correct.
They both factor in, right?
Yeah, they both factor in.
That is very interesting.
What?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
The media vote is part of it, but a big part of it is prior Hodge winners. Yeah.
That's cool.
And who decides this media vote? I'm trying to get my vote here. And
I have no idea.
Who do you got to go to get a vote?
I think it should just be up to you, to be honest. It seemed, hearing you talk about wrestling history and stuff like that, I would put you up again in a wrestling Jeopardy contest against any media member.
It'd be very objective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes,
100%.
Hey,
I think
want to know who was a killer back in the day? You were talking about watching those old tapes. You want to know who was a straight-up killer? And it was that same Dave Schultz, Kenny Monday. There was another one that slipped in. You know who I'm thinking?
I mean,
Rob Cole.
Rob Cole's State College High.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rob Cole made the team one of those years, and Dave wasn't wrestling, but Cole beat Monday. It was a big deal. I believe it was 1991.
Yeah, that's right. He was in there with those guys. I forgot about that. No, yeah. So you probably don't know this right now. Maybe you do, but my dad he retired from coaching wrestling, and he recently got back in, and he's coaching State College High. So he's coaching the high school where Penn State is, and that's where Rob Cole went. And Rob's dad was the coach at Penn State, so Rob grew up here, and he had Rob Cole come do a coach's seminar for him 2 months ago, maybe.
I did know that your dad got back in. I did know that. You want to know a match that I saw? This is going to blow your mind. You specifically, Bo. I know you're going to want to hear about this. I watched in person Pat Smith after he'd won 4. It was his first National Open after he won 4 in the finals versus Dave Schultz.
Wow. That's a big match.
There.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
I was at this match, and I was behind Dave in the hallway. I'm with my mom. We're for the high school division, and so we're walking over, and we end up behind Dave. And I tell my mom, like, just slow down. This is Dave Schultz. And we just stayed behind him for, a few minutes and just eavesdropped on what he was saying. And somebody asked him, and he was in his full singlet. He had his full singlet with his shoes, and he had the Foxcatcher shirt with underneath, but with the straps up. So when it was time to wrestle, he just pulled the shirt off, and I just thought that was funny that those dudes walked around in their wrestling singlets. I just thought that was funny. We're in Las Vegas. We're in Las Vegas. It's 100 degrees outside. These guys are walking through like attractions, and they can't figure out why people are staring at them. I heard somebody say to him, are you going to win tonight? They asked him that. And it was a fellow wrestler. It was a coach or from the community. They said, are you going to win tonight? To Dave. And I did not realize that Dave had Pat. Like, prior to the internet, you could be at a tournament like I was and not know.
Right.
So, I mean, the finals would come around, and that's when you found out who was in the finals. I didn't know he had Pat. And Dave was 36 years old.
Wow.
He had just come out of retirement. And he paused when they asked him. And he thought about it. And then he shook his head, and he said, yeah. And then I got there, and it was Pat Smith.
Yeah.
And he beat him. Dave beat him.
What a legend.
It's a crazy match.
No, his style was so fun to watch because you could tell he was as strong as it comes for his weight. Like, he had the strength, but he didn't really have like the speed or the athleticism. Like, he looked like a good wrestling athlete, but not really a good athlete. So then he'd wrestle a guy like Kenny Monday or a guy like Nate Carr, and it was like so crazy, that clash. But it was so exciting as well because Dave just had every trick in the book. Like, he just knew how to wrestle when it came down to it. Like, that's why he was as good as he was. It was because he knew wrestling. He knew what the sport, knew how to impose as well, and he knew the sport.
He eventually got Carr down. By the way, by the time that feud was over, he started to pull away. But I know exactly what you mean by using Carr and Kenny Monday. Like, they would just explode, and all of a sudden they'd have 3 points.
Yeah, well, even his brother Mark was like so.
And it's good for 4 points. No, I know exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, he just didn't have that like explosiveness, but you could, and he was slow. He would move so slow when he would come out there. It was like it was crazy. You've ever watched his matches?
Yeah, couple.
Yeah.
So hairy.
So hairy. He looked like a gorilla out there.
He was a big believer, which still to this day is disputed, but that your lead leg, and he would compare it to a boxer. He would say the same way a boxer throws a jab and that's his main hand, he would say your lead leg hand is the one that you should be reaching with. Which the majority of wrestling says no, that protects and you reach with your rear leg. But he believed it was a huge part of his philosophy. I listened to Brandon Slade do a whole piece on this, but it was a big deal that Dave said you grab the guy and you reach with this leg and then be aware. If the guy changes elevation, you got to be aware that he's coming for that leg. But it was just part of his belief patterns. And they weren't all foolproof, but they were his, and he believed them, and he turned that into world and Olympic medals.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, he used to I heard stories, people tell me he used to get up and train and run at 4 a.m., you know, in the middle of the night when because he knew that was when the Russians were training. So he would do his regular day of training, and then he would get up in the middle of the night and train as well because he knew the Russians were training at that point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I believe it. Kurt Angle used to do that, but this was Kurt's hero. My favorite Dave story was Olympic Training Center. And these guys had gone out. They'd gone out and they were having a good time and they were headed back. And they run into Dave. And so they're passing Dave. He's out on the street doing a run. So they're like, you know, they give him the old honk and the wave. So he just takes off like a bullet after him. And they're like, oh, he wants to race. They speed up, and then they hit this red light. They're like, oh, come on, light, turn. And Dave's getting close, and the light turns green. And they speed up, and then they got to take a turn. And then there's another red light, and Dave's coming after him. And they finally get back to the parking lot, and Dave goes, what are you doing? I was trying to get a ride.
If you guys like that clip, check out the whole podcast here, and make sure to hit that subscribe button.